John Huddy is Fox News correspondent on site in Gaza City.
Today was the bloodiest day so far in the 13 days of fighting since Operation Protective Edge started. At least 84 Palestinians were killed here in Gaza, at least 60 in one neighborhood alone in East Gaza. We went into that neighborhood earlier, just an hour or 2 hours after the fighting ended, to get a look for ourselves. We just heard two loud explosions behind me just to the north of us here along the coastline, and we've seen heavy artillery fire. It's really intensified, Shepard, over the course of the last 30 minutes. That's cannon fire from a naval vessel offshore. You can see how crowded and chaotic it is here. People are literally crushing in the line to try to get money out of the ATM machine that's been closed for more than a week. We saw the shelling. We heard the airstrikes. We watched it from this area. Now to actually be here, to smell the smoke, to see this, and also the children, the dead bodies being put in the ambulances. I mean, there's still clothing hanging on the clotheslines. It's gut-wrenching. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed with emotion at this point. Spain's Deputy Prime Minister said that an emergency cabinet meeting has been scheduled Wednesday in Madrid to discuss Catalan, but Spanish government officials, including the country's prime minister, still refuse to accept the region's independence. And the images that we're hearing and that we're seeing are absolutely haunting and horrific. The skulls, the bones, the decomposing bodies, thousands upon thousands of people dumped literally into mass graves in Iraq and Syria. I want to just show you real quick and set the scene for you quickly. We are outside of the Eurostar and basically one of the main metro stations here in downtown Brussels. You can see there's a heavy security presence. There are soldiers outside where this basically the people are being screened, their bags are being checked going in, and then behind that there are police standing guard. So that gives you an idea about the security presence as transportation remains very limited. Time is of the essence, time is running out, and as the days and hours go by, the likelihood of finding people buried beneath the rubble and debris certainly decreases considerably. There are still parts of the terminal where the glass is shattered or blown out, but even more telling are the bullet marks. At this point, it's not looking very good. Of course, you talk to some foreign ministers, they paint a rosy picture on it, saying they're optimistic. But again, it seems Iran is really reversing course on some of these main issues. We've heard and seen mortar fire fired by Israeli ground forces at Gaza, very close to our location. In fact, as we've also heard and seen airstrikes, and there is a artillery blast right there, possibly either heavy artillery or cannon fire. Israel is one of 4 countries that sit along the Red Sea. To get a better look, I took to the sky.
Our own John Huddy had to duck for cover.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
There's been several days of mourning. Usually this is a time of celebration because it marks the end of Ramadan, the Eid al-Fitr celebration. But obviously what happened Saturday night is casting a huge shadow over the overall festivities.
Live now in Gaza City. Hello, John.
Shannon, today was the bloodiest day so far in the 13 days of fighting since Operation Protective Edge started, and in the 3 days since the ground offensive started. At least 84 Palestinians, we're hearing some explosions in the background, by the way. At least 84 Palestinians were killed here in Gaza, at least 60 in one neighborhood alone in East Gaza. We went into that neighborhood earlier, just an hour or 2 hours after the fighting ended, to get a look for ourselves. Here's what we saw. This is all just gut-wrenching to see. I mean, utter just destruction. Everything's been destroyed. This home, what used to be a home, people's bed sheets still there. I'm seeing clothing, shoes, what used to be probably the living room or kitchen. You know, we saw the shelling. We heard the airstrikes. We watched it from this area. Now to actually be here, to smell the smoke, to see this, and also the children, the dead bodies being put in the ambulances. I mean, there's still clothing hanging on the clotheslines. It's gut-wrenching. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed with emotion at this point. It's just utter destruction. Everything you see here is damaged. It's been hit by either artillery fire or airstrikes. This is what's left of an ambulance. Rescue crews here are running out of time. There was a 2-hour window ceasefire for humanitarian reasons. Now they have less than an hour. Now, the death toll continues to climb tonight. The Israeli military has targeted that area, East Gaza in particular, because of the number of Hamas rocket launches targeting Israel that have come from there, and also as the ground offensive continues, uprooting all the underground tunnels that Hamas uses for the storage and transport of those rockets, and also to try to infiltrate, get into Israel. There have been attacks on Israeli soldiers. One militant was found with handcuffs and tranquilizers as well, indicating that he was trying to possibly abduct Israeli citizens. That said, diplomatic efforts are underway to try to bring about a ceasefire. This as the fighting continues. 13 Israeli soldiers were killed overnight in the fighting. We're hearing now explosions and heavy artillery fire in the distance, and that is likely to continue to increase as we go into the evening here. Shannon?
All right, John Huddy live for us on the ground there.
John Huddy live in Amatrice right now. There it is, late afternoon. John, have rescuers given up hope that they can find anybody else alive, or are they still digging?
No, they're still digging. They haven't given up hope because, one, the tales of survival, though we're hearing less and less, they're few and far between. But, two, because as we've seen in the past as journalists, Leland, some of these earthquakes, we've seen people as far as 5 days into it getting pulled out of the rubble. So people are hoping, they're praying, but obviously time is of the essence, time is running out, and as the days and hours go by, the likelihood of finding people buried beneath the rubble and debris certainly decreases considerably. But again, the search continues. That said, 267 people confirmed dead. That number is up from 250 earlier this morning. And Leland, you talked about the aftershocks and the tremors. This is creating a huge logistical issue for the search and now in some areas recovery operation, because number one, adding to the overall damage in these towns that have already, as you can see, as we're walking here, been decimated and devastated by Wednesday morning's magnitude 6.2 earthquake, but also getting vehicles up into these areas. There are more roadblocks, roads that have been damaged because of falling rocks, because of problems, structural integrity concerns of bridges. So these towns are now being basically cut off and isolated from the heavy equipment and vehicles needed to continue the recovery effort. And certainly, again, the hope for more rescues and more survivors, Leland.
Fox News correspondent John Huddy is live in Brussels with the very latest. John.
Yeah, well, Heather and Cheryl, those reports about the second bomb, I want to be clear about this and a little bit careful because they're unconfirmed. We're reaching out to the federal prosecutor's office here in Belgium to see if they have any comment about that. Thus far, there has been no comment. But again, yeah, this is a very important point, a very important report that there may have been a second Metro bomber. Also, you can see, I want to just show you real quick and set the scene for you quickly. We are outside of the Eurostar and basically one of the main metro stations here in downtown Brussels. You can see there's a heavy security presence. There are soldiers outside where basically the people are being screened, their bags are being checked going in, and then behind that there are police standing guard. So that gives you an idea about the security presence as transportation remains very limited here. That said, we're starting to get a clearer picture about the suspects involved and again the latest reports. I want to start with Najim al-Ashwarhi. If you take a look, again, the the surveillance footage from the airport shows those three men. Well, initially it was believed that Najim al-Ashwarhi was the man in the white jacket. Well, now it turns out he, according to officials, is in the dark jacket on the left. The person in that white jacket, who is yet to be identified, remains at large. He is still on the loose. That suspect continues to be hunted by police. In the middle is Ibrahim el-Bakhari. He and his brother, Khalid, were two of the other suicide bombers. Ibrahim was the suicide bomber that carried out the second attack at the airport, and his brother, Khalid, carried out the attack in the metro station, where, again, there are reports of a second bomber. Salah Abdel Salam, who was the Paris bomber, you remember he was arrested here in Brussels on Friday. Well, he will be arraigned in court
today. And so we're waiting for more information on that, of course, on terrorism charges. I mentioned transportation being limited here in the city. Metro transportation is limited. A lot of the main lines are shut down. And again, the airport remains shut down as well, at least through Saturday. And here outside this main train, Eurostar Metro terminal, heavy security presence, soldiers, police, and that will remain the case as the investigation and the hunt for suspects continues. Cheryl, Heather, back to you.
All right, John Huddy, thank you very much, live from Brussels.
The New York State budget will not be on time. Big surprise there, right? Well, the deadline is tomorrow at midnight for the new fiscal year. Lawmakers left Albany for the Passover Easter break without a budget agreement in sight. Fox 5's chief political correspondent Dick Brennan takes a look at what's next. And right now there's breaking news out of Russia where the death toll continues to rise in the wake of another pair of suicide bombings. The second such attacks to rock the country in the past 2 days. At least 12 people are now confirmed dead and more than a dozen are injured. The blast happened in the southern Russian province of Dagestan. You could see the map there. Authorities say one of the bombers detonated explosives in a car when he was pulled over by traffic police. Major, during the last storm that blew through there were some concerns about the emergency response. In fact, there was an investigation of Connecticut Light and Power's response to some of the conditions. Are there any concerns this time around? How has the response been so far? Well, Heather, we've all heard that McDonald's song, "Give me that filet of fish, give me..." Sorry, I had to do it. Well,
Great.
Well, listen to this. One customer wanted his filet of fish really bad and went after a drive-through worker to get it after waiting for what he thought was a long time.
Oh.
People in parts of Connecticut spent the past day putting sandbags around their homes. They're worried also about flooding and the flooding that could fill their basements. And right now, Fox 5's Christine Persichetti is in Greenwich with the story. Christine, you look a lot drier today. However, a lot of people are struggling out there. Tell us about it.